And with that, I am super excited to welcome Josh Belangi, who is the principal of Cook County Independent School District number 166. Welcome, Josh.
Yeah, thank you for having me today. Thank you for coming to listen to what we're going to talk about. Yes, I am Josh Belangi, and if you look over there, the name is hard, and so this is what I always did when I taught, is I would not show the kids my name on the first day of school. I just said, say Belangi, Belangi. And then I showed them that's not how you actually spell it. The reason I put that up there is a quick story. 15 years ago, I got my master's degree in educational leadership, and we're going to the commencement ceremony at Concordia University, St. Paul. And my family was in the back of the big arena. And my now wife, Katie, who was my fiance at the time, was there with my parents. And you fill out the card to phonetically spell your name so they say it right in front of all these people on this big day. And I walked up to the stage and I handed my card to the person, gave it to the speaker, and the speaker took my card and saw that and said, Joseph Bollinger. And I walked across the stage to absolute silence because my family in the back, like Joseph, and they said, wait, no, it's fine. The degree says the right name. Yes, so, yes, thank you. Again, we've been here for just a little over a year. This is my 20th year going into education. For 17 years, I was a classroom teacher at Anoka High School and Coon Rapids High School in the Anoka-Hennepin School District down in the Twin Cities. And then for 10 years, when we lived in the metro, I was a middle school teacher at Benilde St. Margaret School in St. Louis Park. And so that was my career in education before then, both big public, small private. And then I was able to do 1 year of being an assistant principal at Coon Rapids High School before I got the job as the head principal here. So we moved up here in June of 2023, and we're having a great time. My wife, Katie, not currently, but she started working at the YMCA when we first moved here. Now she works at WTIP as a development director. And I have two sons, Dylan and Oscar, who are in 5th and 4th grade this year at Sawtooth Mountain Elementary. So that's just a little bit about me. And as we get started here, as I was preparing, I looked on the two organizations and picked out the values that are stated between these two organizations, Care Partners and Cook County Schools. And this is what on paper Care Partners and Cook County Public Schools say they value. And so what I like to do is just look at this and why would we talk about connection? Why would we want to bring people together? To me, it seems like there's a lot of shared values between the two organizations, right? And obviously respect is in both, but when you talk about being client-centered, you can't be client-centered without having humility and love for another person, right? When you talk about confidentiality and collaboration, I feel like all of these things here definitely align. There's courageous moments, there's courageous conversations that happen when we're working with folks. For sure, in a public school setting today, I give the conversation to all the middle school and high school students. We look at the handbook. I ask them, I say, anywhere in the world, does everyone play by the same set of rules, the same set of values, and the same expectations? And they all say, nowhere. I said, yeah, except for here, you have to. And this handbook is what says we're all going to live by when we are students here, that type of stuff. So those can be difficult conversations and stuff like that, but they're important. And always when we're collaborating and working with folks, bringing courage, truth, and wisdom. I just wanted to put that up there just to show, like, if somebody asks why the connection, I think because we're trying to live out a very similar mission. All right. And then, as an educator, why is it important for me to try to foster and create intergenerational connections? For me, I'm a story guy. I really love my story, and I love hearing other people's stories. And so you can probably look up some research, and people way smarter than me with way more degrees than me have probably identified why it's the benefit to a community and to folks when you have intergenerational connections, that's out there. For me, I'd like to share a story of what really makes this impactful for me as an educator. So this picture up here, it's the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Is there anybody in here who's familiar with the significance of that bridge in Selma, Alabama?
Okay.
Anybody want to just share? What's the significance of this bridge?
Well, it is the
Yeah.
site of one of the most impactful marches in the civil rights.
Yes. Bloody Sunday.
Yeah.
When former Representative John Lewis, as a young man, led the marches in the civil rights movement from Selma, Alabama. And I put this picture up here because as a kid growing up in school, this all happened before my time. But I learned about the civil rights movement. I learned about Martin Luther King Jr. I learned about the I Have a Dream speech. And then I got the opportunity when I was a teacher at Benilde St. Margaret's in the middle school to teach a class called the American Experience. And this was a combined history and literature class. And part of the class was unique because it centered around student travel experiences. And so when we had our unit on the civil rights era, and we were teaching about that per the standards and that type of stuff, we would fly then 28 eighth graders into Memphis, Tennessee. We would pile them into 5 minivans, and then we drive from Memphis all the way to Atlanta, actually going to the places that we were learning about in the book. So on that trip, one of our stops that we visited was Selma, Alabama. And we parked the vans out in front of the AME Baptist Church in Selma where the marches started. And with their learning journals and books in hand, we walked from the AME chapel through Selma, across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in absolute silence, and then had these reflection activities once we got to the other side of the bridge. And one year that we did this, that in itself is just an amazing experience, and I feel incredibly fortunate as an educator to be able to have been in that very unique situation. I get that there was a lot of privilege involved in creating that opportunity for those kiddos, but it was still a really powerful and impactful experience. And one year, as you cross over the Edmund Pettus Bridge, there's a Civil Rights Memorial Park just on the other side. And so that's where we did our reflection questions and talk and that type of stuff. And I was sitting with maybe a half dozen middle school eighth graders, just kind of guiding them through what we were talking about in class and what they've just done. And this couple came up, parked, walked over to us, and they were probably in their 70s, sat down and said, well, what are y'all doing here? Where are y'all from? We're like, oh, we're from Minnesota. Minnesota. You know, and so they kind of wanted to know what was going on. And then, so the kids, you know, told them what we were here for and what we were doing. And then the man said, oh, well, I was in the march. And the kids were like, what? Like the books, put away. The pens and pencils, put away. And for about 20 minutes, the kids got a firsthand account of what happened that day. And not just that day, but in that whole era from somebody who was alive then. For me, I'm a little embarrassed now to admit, it was a huge new learning experience for me. I had learned about that stuff in school, right? But for me as a kid, learning about it in a book, yeah, okay, got it, remember it, I can pass the test. But it didn't have that real life connection. The first time I did this trip, it was inspiring for me because I was like, oh, this, yeah, it was history, but people are still alive today who experienced this, who lived through this. And so that experience for those kids on that day is a story that I share with you all to explain why creating intergenerational connections is important for me as an educator. Because they will learn stuff in the books that they read and the lessons that our teachers bring. But when you create those opportunities with folks who have really walked the walk, it's a whole nother level. Another side note, I'll just share this. This is no political leaning one way or the other. I just want to share this as an educator. One of the days that we were there, I don't know if you all remember this, years ago, John Lewis was still alive. And then President and John Lewis were going back and forth on Twitter. Do y'all remember this when like the then president was like calling out John Lewis on Twitter, John Lewis, and our students came up. I didn't even know they had their cell phones like Mr. Belangi, and it wasn't a political thing. They're just like, what's going on here? Why is he saying these things about John Lewis? We had just walked across the Independence Bridge. It was this really crazy moment as a teacher to be like, oh, current events, history, still connected. In this class, one of the questions, two of the questions that we focused on is how does history reflect values and how is history relevant today? And again, I'll just go back to when we learn about things, it's important to learn about them, but when you can make that connection, the relevance of that history, the realization that like, you know, human beings, when you look at time, repeat things, sometimes good, sometimes bad. And it just really sets up, I think, an impactful and meaningful learning experience for kids. And then I have here, this image here is the Sankofa bird. And you probably aren't familiar with it. Maybe you are. I learned about this through my work with restorative practices over the years and people who have been mentors and leaders to me. And specifically, one mentor that I had was Dr. Talea Tolfree. And she is in the metro area and she runs an organization around restorative justice. And one of the things that she does is she worked with Hennepin County and youth who are charged with crimes to bring them in and either give them options like here's the penalty path for restitution, or here's an intentional practice around restoration and how we can help you as a young person restore maybe the harm that's been done and that type of stuff. And so she brought this to me actually, and the Sankofa bird comes from Ghana, West African country. And what it represents is this idea, if you look at the bird, the feet are pointed forward, but the head is looking backwards. And the idea is that the past serves as a guide for planning the future. And so those are just a few stories as to why the opportunity to create intergenerational connections with folks in this community and students at our school is really important. So I just wanted to share that with you all. Yeah. And then I think with that, are we going to transition to a little bit of a interview?
Yes, well, I think we yeah, let's do that. Let's do a little bit of an interview.
Okay.
No panic, no worries.
No, yeah.
They're all softball questions. So, you had mentioned that you had come here from Anoka Hennepin, which I'm guessing is a little different kind of an environment. Just guessing. And so, so what are some of the maybe challenges that you have seen or experienced as an educator in such a remote area?
Yeah.
You know, where we are.
Yeah.
I think we're not even rural. We are, what are we called? Frontier. We are frontier.
Oh.
That is beyond rural. We are ruralists.
Is that a joke or is that real?
Real, yeah.
That's a funny designation, a frontier touch.
Wow.
I just learned that.
Yeah, so challenges and celebrations, right, is what you want. So, yeah, obviously the challenge is, I mean, I was rolling into the bus garage at 5:30 this morning to drive a bus route because we don't have enough people to drive buses. So this is 7 hours in, and it started with the Pike Lake route this morning. So we have limited resources here for the need that we have here. And it's not just the schools, right? We were just talking to like today, like our own hospital, we do not provide the opportunity for mothers to give birth to their babies in the hospital here because we can, right? And that's unique. So so yeah, the limitation on resources is a struggle that we try to manage every single day. And then, I mean, to be a little cliche, like from every struggle is like a joy or a celebration, right? And so here's what I'll share on the positive side of that. So at Anoka Hennepin schools, specifically the school that I was at, Coon Rapids High School, it was similar to the other ones as well. You know, we served the city of Coon Rapids. And if you don't know, it's a northwest suburb of about 60,000 people, 20 minutes northwest of Minneapolis. And so Coon Rapids High School in Coon Rapids. But because we are the largest district in the state of Minnesota, 40,000 kids. We had kids who, yes, lived in Coon Rapids, but then I don't know if you know what this means, but McKinney-Vento is a status that is given to young people who don't have stable housing. So the thought about around that is that, they may start their schooling at Coon Rapids High School, but because of life events and circumstances that they have no ownership in, their place of living moves. And that's a very challenging experience for young folks. And so McKinney-Vento is a program that provides funding to, even though like maybe did live in Coon Rapids and then moved to St. Paul, Minnesota. Well, you should go to St. Paul Central or something, right? That's when you live there. Well, this program provides the opportunity for those kids to still have their school fee consistent. And so we would have the buses roll up to drop kids off, just for example. We would have parent drop off, and then we would have a line of taxis and cabs line up at the school, dropping kids off, not just Coon Rapids, but from as far as the west side of St. Paul. And so when you talk about like transportation and stuff, it was pretty easy to do that. And the other thing that was a resource in the larger district was alternative learning centers. So kiddos who like this main school setting, it's just not working for them. There's alternative learning centers that a little bit smaller setting, a little bit more structure and support involved to allow kids who are maybe falling behind in the regular system, stay caught up, on track for graduation, direct connections to like technical colleges that are right there. So, you can have them leave the regular public school and go to the alternative learning center to keep that product. So here, we don't have any of that. And so I told you I was going to talk about celebration here. The celebration here is that we've got to figure it out. Like, we serve all of those kids in our school. Like, all of those kids. Some of those kids that we serve would probably find if they were in a bigger district, find themselves in different settings and that type of stuff. We don't have that here. We have everyone that comes to our door, we bring in, and we have to. Like, we don't have any other options. And so for me, I like that. I like to struggle through things. I like to make mistakes because then for me, that's how I learn best. I like when people, I'm not giving people free rein here, but I like when people are critical of me because I can take it. And then I want to know, I don't want to say, oh, everything's great. Like, sure, things are great, but there's other things that need work on. That's what I like to focus on. And so that's what I've noticed a lot is just all of my experience has been like, okay, let's connect them with this group or something to get them extra support. It's like, no, you're it. You're it. And so that is exhausting. It's overwhelming. It's sometimes I'll be honest, you get a sense of hopelessness a little bit, but then at the same time, it's like, yeah, but like, we're doing it. Like Cook County, we're doing it. Like, yes, I got to go drive the bus. I get to drive down Pike Lake Road and go pick up kids in the morning. That's not exactly how I wanted to start my morning, but like, heck yeah, I tell my friends who are administrators in the school, they can't believe it. They're like, they think it's awesome, which yes, when you're watching it from afar, it's really cool. But right, it's really unique to us here. And that is inspiring and it helps you kind of push through some of those difficult situations. So
Yeah, and I would say that one of the things that we always talk about, even at Care Partners, is that one of the unique things about Cook County is that there is so much collaboration that happens among organizations and groups and businesses, because we do, you're right. If we're not going to make it happen, it ain't happening.
Right. So
that's awesome. So how long have you been principal?
this is my second year.
Okay, so far, what's your favorite thing about being the principal? Do you have a whistle or anything?
No whistle. My favorite thing so far, specifically about being the principal here, is that it is a pre-K through 22 experience. So we have 3-year-olds in our building all the way up to 21-year-olds right now in one building. And again, like I feel pretty excited and motivated to be able to be a part of a school that serves that wide of a population. It's pretty cool. So that's probably my favorite thing. I do, my kids in the school can create some challenges, but I'll admit, like, it's also really great to be able to be very busy with work, but I just got to see my fourth grader in the hallway and, just a hi dad at 10:30 in the morning. It's like, okay, that's giving me some more energy to keep going, that type of thing. So yeah.
Is there anything that surprised you when you just actually started doing the job that you weren't expecting?
Yeah, like driving bus.
Yeah.
That was a big surprise. One thing that surprised me and that I'm adjusting to more is I came from a place that had a lot of like really structured systems in place because again, an Oklahoma Penn dealing with 40,000 kids, like there's a system that you got to go through when situations arise. And here, because we're so small and so on the frontier and that type of stuff, like there's not a lot of those structured systems because it's hard sometimes because all the unique scenarios that we work with. And so the lack of that, like a couple of times I was like, okay, so guys, like, what do you do when this happens? You're like, I don't know, it hasn't happened before. So yeah.
Yeah, I've often said, the good news is we get to make it up as we go along. The bad news is we have to make it up as we go.
Exactly.
Exactly. So I want to talk a little bit about the current, and if you want to go to the next slide. Yeah, what are some of the opportunities? I know when I moved here, this was one of the first places where I moved that I didn't have kids or grandkids who were connected to the school. There was no reason for me or easy way for me to sort of connect in. And I'm finding that can be a little bit of a challenge. I don't know about you guys,
Some
but
people talk here.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. What's the easy way to interact with the school? Because there's a whole lot of us who really want to do that.
Sure.
And unfortunately, I didn't agree with your last statement that says there's no structure, because I think there's too much structure in too many ways.
Okay.
But this question, so I'm anxious to hear that answer.
yeah. And so one of the things we definitely wanted to talk about, and of course, Josh can speak about ISD 166, and that's awesome. Yeah. So what are some of the opportunities for intergenerational support and connection? And one of the things, and I say this is an issue here across the board, is trying to figure out what's going on around here. Like you can't spit without hitting an event, but try to figure out which place to go to find the info for what thing can be challenging. One of the nice things about all of these schools that I've noticed as I was doing my research for this is they have websites, and the websites include school calendars. And most of them also include a way for you to connect as a volunteer if you choose. I think most of the schools have a PTO or a PTA that
We do, yeah.
that we can that you can connect through for, the parent teacher organization, but that's not just for parents, right? A PTA,
Yeah.
PTO is other people like,
Yep.
yeah.
I'll take your $10.
Yeah.
They'll take your $10. And your cookies for the bake sale, my guess is, yeah. Sweet. So one way is to just try to keep an eye on those websites. I know that you do. I hope we're all listening. I love WTIP in the morning. I don't listen to it at work as much as I probably should. But I know that you have an interview at WTIP every other Monday. Wow, you get.
And if I could say, that's probably the other incredibly surprising thing is when I moved in here, they're like, hey, we did this thing where we would call the principal from her office and do an interview, and it's live from the principal's office during school day, folks. So if you ever do tune in, I just want to be sure. Yes, so every other Monday. Yeah.
And then there is a monthly newsletter. And what is the best way for someone to see that?
So I think right now it's posted online when they're published monthly. So like our Facebook page, if you follow Cook County Schools on Facebook, Facebook. One of the things I'm going to do now is send that to you all so you can distribute it out. And that talks about a little bit closer look on what's happening in specific areas of the school, different events coming up, that type of thing. More than just like the general school calendar that says when the games are and that type of stuff.
Although speaking of the games, and I am just so excited about this because I have learned over the years that one of the best ways to try to connect is to show up at like football games and basketball games and concerts and things. It's so much fun. And you get to sort of relive, sometimes sadly, your own.
Nice. Yeah.
So I am so excited to see that now, if you are 60 years of age or older, you get free entry at Farmington. About that, and I want to start tooting the horn on that one, because I just think, thank you for what a, a welcoming gesture, if you should ask me.
And if I could just add to that too, like, yes, the sporting events that are charged, like entry, like free for 16 older, but also there's other amazing after school things that happen that are free to everybody that will be communicated through like the Vikings voice and that type of stuff. A quick example is our seventh graders do this event in the spring called AMP, Art, Music, and Poetry. And these kiddos in their English class are working on in art class design and creating art. And some of them are writing music and writing poems. And then they go up and it's like a poetry slam, if you're familiar, where they go up and present on stage in the auditorium. So things like that, even like, please come. Like I know I'm the principal and so I think it's cool, but I think you all don't think it's cool too.
I think.
I just said no, at the sporting events, they have really good concessions, so I'm looking for.
Excellent. And I know that Booster Club events. So what is the Booster Club and how could we?
Yeah, so for example, last week at our first home football game, the Booster Club put on a big tailgate party with burgers and.
Yeah.
You there?
I sold tickets there.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yes. So. In our school district, we have around 450. Yeah,
As opposed to 40,000.
as opposed to 40,000. All right. Yeah.
Does that include like Birch Grove and what is it?
No, that's just ISD 166. Yeah,
Yeah, and that doesn't include Portage either, right?
correct. Not at all.
Well, how many kids are in the school now?
I don't know the numbers of the three others. Yeah, I'm not sure.
This is everybody else probably knows this answer, but I don't. For the Grand Portage kids, do they go all the way through high school there, or do they come to Grand Marais for high school?
Yeah, so while everybody comes to Cook County Schools for high school,
They do, okay.
yeah, Oshkie and Birch Grove go to 5th grade, and then GES goes to 8th grade.
GES is Great Expectations.
Correct.
School. Yeah. So, okay, so they all, that's a
And
melting
then
pot.
everybody comes, yeah.
Wow, I wonder how that is sometimes. I mean, is it cool? Is it kind of awkward? Is it?
Well, I mean, school is awkward, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So yes, but I think I think yes, it does present challenges, right? But also opportunities for fresh starts and new relationships. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I will say that again, I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but I don't sense a lot of animosity among the different schools here.
Sure.
But more of a, once again, we're a small community or a small county, and we're all gonna figure out ways to make it happen. So,
Yep. Yeah.
kudos to all of our educators.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Yeah.
for that. I never hear one dissing the other, and that's awesome. So do we eat in March? Is that what goes on?
Yeah, and so this was new to me too. And see, I don't even know what it stands for. But
I'm on the board.
perfect. What is it? Educate.
You want me to?
Sorry, no, you don't have to. I put you on the spot.
I don't remember, there's some scrutiny.
Go ahead.
But it's an event in March where we get all kinds of different food vendors throughout the area to present. They're kind of like appetizer size snacks. We have all these tables and, there's sweet and savory and there's a mix of just every different kind of thing, really good stuff. Except as a volunteer, we weren't allowed to eat until some of my favorites were gone. So, but we only sell a limited number of tickets, and that's so that the food vendors know how much food to bring. And we sell out every year. But what's really great about it is a lot of the students participate in, first of all, the culinary students, they have their own table and they present, they have the most interesting foods that they have presented. And, but they're also helping with just the whole, putting on the whole thing and, you know, doing running and stuff like that.
Music, they provide the music entertainment, so.
Oh, and yes, and usually the swing band does one thing, but then usually there's two other performers from the school that will do some kind of music, whether it's a band ensemble or
Choir.
choir. But what about, where does the money go?
So that.
Oh, well. We fund all kinds of, I guess, just in general, you kind of call them extracurricular. We fund educational or things that enhance their learning experience in arenas that are not covered by the school or the regular funding. And there's just lots of different examples. So one of the ones we did recently that I thought was so cool is that, and I don't remember, I guess it was the elementary school, they wanted picnic tables. And guess what? The kids in the shop area
In the high school
Yeah.
shop, yeah.
are building them. And so what we did is we funded the materials. And so to me, that was just such a great win-win because, you know, the school gets to benefit, but the school gets to benefit, you know, and so that collaboration. We've funded all kinds of different things. We funded a bunch of students to go to Duluth to see, I think it was I don't remember.
Was that a Christmas Carol and the capital trip? Was that funded?
No,
by-
that was something else, yeah, that was going to the Godfrey and the
Yeah,
state, and
yeah.
the state capitol, yeah. Another thing recently, one of the teacher who, a special ed teacher, she requested to get calming rugs in her space because the ones in there were too wild and crazy. So, you know, so we do all kinds of different things and the teachers come to us with another thing we did is, I'm never bad at names, but the technology teacher, the school acquired a whole bunch of new audiovisual equipment and he didn't know how to use it to the max. And so what we funded is for him to get one-on-one help from a WTIP person who had that knowledge. So, again, I'm bad at names, but so the WTIP guy was bringing the teacher up to speed so that the teacher could pass it on to the students so that they would have more information to go out in the world and use those skills. So we do all kinds but it's always initiated by a teacher that comes with their, you know, what they want to do with their proposal.
Bobby, what kinds of volunteer opportunity?
Oh, well, we really are looking for more board members because it's definitely a working board. We all work, there's no, you know, there's two different kinds of boards and we have no employees, nobody's paid. And so we're always looking, but even if you don't want to be a board member, if you are just willing to volunteer with the eats all, and also in including all the eats, we have a silent auction. And so there's a lot of work because we can't set up and it's on a Thursday, on a Wednesday. I got my nonprofits mixed up. So we can't set up until after the school day is over. But then they have to be set up by a certain time. So there's a lot of activity with getting the tables up, getting them draped, getting all of the prices, whatever. And so we could really use volunteers to help with that, or even help with cashiering and
So people, can they email you? Or is there, I will include Bonnie's email.
Well, okay, but I have a special email.
Okay, yes, I will,
That
I will check in with you. so
just
that we make-
specifically for
So that,
anything else with the education.
know right away that that's what that's about. Awesome, thank you. Community pop-ups?
Yeah, so I just do this on there, just ways to support, maybe not in participation, but sometimes financially, like there's the different groups who, for example, our middle school is trying to fund a trip to Washington DC. So when you see them out selling whatever it is, I know last winter at the holiday parade, our group that went to Costa Rica this summer was was selling stuff for fundraise for the Costa Rica trip. And that trip that happened this summer was a great trip. And one of the things that the teacher was reflecting on is how typically when these school trips happen, there's fundraising and they raise maybe 30% of the cost in fundraising and then they pay the rest. But here for the Costa Rica trip, the kids raise over 50% of the cost. And so that's just that's a testament to the whole community, how supportive everyone is. And a really cool thing, because for me, like one of the things is I want to make sure that opportunities in our school are actually opportunities for all kids and not just the ones that might be able to afford it. So when we can do things like that, it creates more opportunities. Yeah.
And I would like to throw in the Education Foundation helps support their efforts. We didn't fund the trip itself, but we funded some of the funding. In other words, we, I don't remember exactly what that was, whether it was, brochure, I don't remember, but we supported the funding activity for the trip.
Awesome. And then you have currently a
And
volunteer.
Currently we have a volunteer reader who comes in and reads. And that's really the extent of like during the school day volunteer happenings right now in the school. But we're gonna chat about maybe future opportunities. Yes.
I go into the elementary library every week and we shelf books.
And okay, there you go.
Really? I'm down about these, or how to be a reader, how to do all the things.
Today.
Oh, right.
We're going to talk about it. And one of the reasons for this connection was to how do we communicate the need and that type of stuff. And so we've been working together. I've been reaching out to the PTA and we're going to talk a little bit more about that, about potential things coming up and just being in communication more, being able to get those needs communicated out and folks to be able to participate.
And I would just say, some of this conversation that we've just started having for is an intentionality, right? It's just kind of starting maybe, because there's been stuff where people are reaching out on their own and, and saying, how can I help with that? But some intentionality about, how do we hear about, we had talked about, the parents are exhausted. A lot of times they're working and, can we make the stuff for the bake sale? And can we send stuff from kindergartners out to our folks and say, hey, we need bake sale stuff? Or what can we do? Because we just don't hear about it unless we have a grandchild or a connection. And so this is just really intended to be a first, hearing what's happening, learn, a meeting, if you haven't already, Josh, and then giving some feedback and ideas, and certainly hearing from Bobby and Virginia and other things people are doing. So this is the start of something more, hopefully. Yeah.
Well, and I would like to throw in as far as the communication so that we can have things readily available rather than having to read through everything on this website and this publication. If we can have just targeted stuff that these are the opportunities and maybe a reference if you want more information, then go to there because I'm not going to say, but to have it focused to not necessarily us, but others in the movement.
Yeah. Yes.
I have a question, what's the graduation rate? Where do they go for those that don't graduate to track that? And then kind of related, I think you got an appropriation on the issue of attendance and the truancy.
Yeah. So, I cannot stand right here and give you the exact graduation rate right now. What I can share from my first year of getting, going through that and seeing that is our 39 graduates, which represented 90+% of our students. I don't have the number in my head, but I know that most of them, the vast majority of them, had further plans after high school, and that was evident at our awards night last spring, where our senior students, when they got their scholarship awards, and again, this is amazing for this community and how it provides opportunities for kids. There was over $300,000 awarded to the seniors last year in scholarship opportunities at places all across the country, not just in school, but in career pathways, that type of stuff. And so I know I'm not giving you the exact number answer, but that, and then your question about attendance, what was that?
Got it. And then do you track the dropouts? and then attendance after that.
I mean, do you track the dropouts as to just see like what they end up doing type thing, or, there's not like a formal tracking system in place or observation of that in place currently right now. Attendance, I've communicated this at open houses already. One of the things that's, unique to Cook County that we struggle with general overall attendance rates. And so we are taking a very focused and intentional effort at improving those through different targeted strategies and services in our school. And with the goal being that we'll see an improvement in our attendance rates, when the day is collected again. So yeah, that is something that was the last year, my main goal was to not change anything and not screw anything up. And I think I was successful in that. And now this year is like, hey, we've got to be more intentional about what we're doing to get kids in school. That's what we kids are.
Do you get a sense of why the attendance?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's everything from and again, the fact that some of our kids ride a school bus for an hour one way, to get to school. Just the geographical area of this place is huge. And by the time they're in high school, they're all coming to the one building. And so that creates challenges and that type of stuff. And yeah.
I understand that there's a person who's in charge of or working with students that are truant or have
Oh, yeah.
truancy.
Yep.
Through the restorative justice piece.
Yep.
And how is that working?
How is it improving? Is it helping?
I'm sorry.
No, sorry.
Because I imagine that that's just the tip of the iceberg, truancy. It's the cause that a lot of times has to do with environment.
I mean, and this isn't unique to Cook County, but in any school setting that I've been in for the 20 years that I've been in it, it's never a case of kids choosing not to come to school because they don't like school. There's always something else there, way bigger.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I think we forget about that reality and just say, why aren't they coming to school? Well, because this, and this. And so, yeah, so through support that group and collaboration, Sarah Kosky, our dean, is the one who kind of is the point person in our school for those things. But I mean, she's the point person. She's not the only one doing the work. We're doing more of a collective effort this year. Yeah.
Was there an increase in truancy? Well, I've read that actually nationally,
Oh, yeah.
there are more kids truant now since the pandemic.
Yep.
They got
Yeah.
used to not coming to school.
Yep. So that, again, not unique to us, all over the place. And whether, used to not coming to school, whether that was the period of time where all of the inequities in all of our systems were just blasted and to everybody clear as day. And those barriers that we're still now trying to overcome to get folks back. But yeah.
Thank you. Well, and after we met with Josh, a couple months ago now, I think it was.
Yeah, July.
I think it was July, which was just yesterday in my world, but it isn't apparently. And we started doing a little bit of brainstorming about ideas for connecting the generations. So if you want to go to the next slide and we can talk a little bit about some of the ideas that we started just popcorning out to help support the school and to support the PTA in ways other than just our checkbooks. Not that the checkbook isn't a wonderful thing, mentioning that, but that there are lots of ways in which we can make those connections. And we started wondering, well, what about doing elementary story readers, for the little ones, and having not just an older adult, but maybe a group of older adults who would take turns doing that. How great would it be to have people with experience in healthcare fields, especially talking to those older kids about and encouraging, because we know it's a need, encouraging them to think about healthcare as a potential career and that kind of thing. It would be great, again, that same story about it's so different when you talk to somebody who was there or who made it happen. I got to think Hyla, does anybody remember? Hyla Magnetsky, right? How cool would it be to be a girl talking to that woman?
Yeah.
about STEM, about science, technology, and, that kind of a career, someone who actually was there. So thinking about all of the people that we have here in our community, and sometimes here, well, they're retired, right? Well, yeah, they're retired. That means they've done all sorts of cool stuff. Let's see if we can connect the cool things that they have done with the students to talk a little bit about what that was like. Real world experts, in other words. How about musical experiences and people who love to share their love of music or their interest in music or their expertise in music? How fun would it be to do maybe a little bit like a StoryCorps where we have some prepared questions and we get students and older adults together to interview each other, to ask each other questions and to hear what that might sound like. I mean, it was fun. And then here is some potential PTA support working at the book fair. And again, part of what I hope may come out of this is if anybody here has a particular heart for this kind of thing, or this kind of connection, maybe working together to create some kind of a blast that we could send out to older adults when these kinds of things are coming up. So someone who would be willing to connect with like the PTA, look at that newsletter, connect the dots and say, hey, I wonder if this might be a smart thing for older adults to connect with. So that you don't have to slog through 5 different.
Like Joan does for the arts.
Yeah, exactly. Like Joan does for the arts, like that, like her blog, right? That just like, if you want to know what's going on in the arts and how you can connect, here's something. So, and we will be sending these slides to you guys as well so that you can see some of these ideas. But I didn't want to leave today without listening to ideas that you might have. If you think, are any of these ideas ones that you are particularly thinking that would be cool? Are there other ways in which you can imagine, and I'm going to do my magic fairy wand spiel. I think sometimes when we are starting to dream, we begin immediately to think of why things won't work. So I am going to wave my magic fairy wand and say, we're not going to worry real hard about all the reasons why this couldn't work. I'm going to wave my wand and say it's all going to work. We'll figure out a way to make it happen. If I had my magic fairy wand and we could figure out a way to make it happen, what would you like to see?
I'd like to see about, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, mentorship.
Say it again.
Mentorship.
Oh, mentorship.
For,
Well, just for an adult, picks on one child that they are involved with. And when I looked at Birchwood, there was a little guy there that was just trouble, and he got a mentor, and it was unbelievable how much he changed, the social skills and this.
It's like the Big Brothers, Big Sisters.
Yeah, that's what I mean, yeah.
So CCHE offers a tutoring program, so it's programming specific. But yeah, if you're talking Big Brother, Big Sisters, there was a grandparent program at one point that might be one.
Maybe that's what it was.
I will say, we've talked a little bit at partners about that concept. Like right now, we have a companion program where we match younger, older staff and younger, older adults that are more social. But wouldn't it be great to ask both sides, I know that's not the right word, the younger and the older to volunteer. So nobody's the client. You're just all volunteering. Older adults can volunteer to be part of this program, and younger folks can be matched people to in a kind of like. Wouldn't be mentorship in the same way? It might be mentorship comes out with it, but the idea is that both sides are volunteering to be part of this. And so we've just been throwing around some thoughts like that.
Especially people on the fringe. Some students on the fringe would benefit from just really, yeah, and really great for both sides to see what's going on yet.
And Pat, I think you had something?
I'd love to see the school hire, and this has been 10 years of loving this, a full-time coordinator who does this kind of work and also disseminates this information to the community and all of the community partners.
because I think this is a wonderful opportunity. If you want to have fun, work at the book fair. I've done that a couple of different times. I've worked in the school on and off for a long time before they decided that, and if this was before you, that adults really aren't wanted for whatever reason. And I think it's just a wonderful idea, so I'm really happy you guys are doing this.
Yeah.
But we need a coordinator, we need somebody who's
Yeah.
time to do it.
You're driving a bus.
Yeah.
That's the, but it's possible.
Yeah.
We'll try to maybe do that.
Many years ago, in Minneapolis, I was a volunteer probation officer, for teen girls, and so I was mentoring them. But that was through the court system. I mean, they weren't act murderers, but they were like truancy or shoplifting or whatever. But the thing is with a program like that, you have to have it well structured and well defined, because everybody's interpreting it like, well, what do I do as far as part of that? So I don't know what resources might be available, and it was so long, I have no idea. I mean, I've been trained, but I don't know what it is. And, but I think that's really, a really good, because I was in that entering situation with those teenage girls, I know that kind of program is.
Seems sometimes with the restorative justice work, maybe this.
But then, there's more. Pre-COVID, I ended up, I participated in one of the Playhouse plays, the Christmas play. I had one line. But it was just this amazing opportunity to go to these rehearsals and watch Sue Kennedy, Betsy, work with these children. She's amazing. And watching how these kids, and so even though I didn't really interact with the kids, I felt a bit of a bonding to them. And so now yesterday I auditioned just for it, the upcoming one. And all these kids, again, it just brought me joy to see how she works with them. And the ones who, they're all totally different, and she just, and so I don't know if there'd be an opportunity through,
So connecting with places where that's already happening, where that,
and observe.
yeah, where the interaction.
I learned so much about what these kids can do and how, that, anyway.
Well,
I
it's
just-
like you also learn that people that are there, right, from the opposite side of the historical side. We that are observing, I don't have any kids either, and so you kind of hear about the school and gee, I don't have an office, in. But when you somehow have a reason to interact with them, like in a play or observing, and you see that child, it makes you want to follow. I'd love to go see them play their flute and the whatever, or go to their football game, or, it makes you feel invested in just building those relationships, right?
And I think it's really hard because a lot of times when we're bringing up these wonderful ideas, it shouldn't fall on the staff and it shouldn't fall on the principal. So there's got to be another way that we can get that kind of a person who, can, as you were talking,
Well, both sides.
on both sides, because it's not your responsibility, no, you have enough.
Another idea that we thought about, and this comes, there are actually in other countries, there will be, and it's called different things in different communities. It could be an auntie bench or a granny bench, or it's a place that is, for example, maybe at the harbor, where they have open lunches for the school, where any kid could come and sit next to an older adult and just have a conversation. That's cool. Maybe they have a question. Maybe they have maybe they're looking for some wisdom and they want to know, what should I do about this or that or the other thing? Or just somebody even just to share the view and not even necessarily say a whole lot, but just to not be alone. And so that was another idea that we had. Like, oh, wouldn't that be fun? I know, I'll say very quickly that I know one of the challenges here is that a lot of our older adults leave during the harbor, but we couldn't probably sit in the harbor in January. So, yeah, maybe we'll worry about it. But anyway, so,
But sitting in the lunchroom,
right,
but
right.
sitting in the
Or-
lunchroom at a table with kids.
Or having a neutral place that's not in any, yeah, Martine.
I have 3 kids in school, and if I could wave my magic wand, I know a lot of people really value that grandparent role. But even more so as like a caregiver, like I hear a lot of working parents that struggle with like the after school time where they don't have childcare until they get off of work. And so like maybe a component of this would be those people that are interested in providing child.
Well, and to add on to that, one of my neighbors in, I don't know the exact situation, but they one day have this child after school. So it's just a few hours, 1 day a week. And it's through their employment agreement. But, so if someone can't commit to every day, maybe 1 day a week, they united.
All right, these are, oh, some great ideas.